Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the event From Mourning to Light. Today, we have a very special speaker. Her name is Teri Wellbrock. And to introduce her, there's a lot to say. So let me take a deep breath. She is a writer and a blogger. She is a speaker. She produces and hosts the Healing Place podcast. She has a beautiful Labradoodle called Sammy, and together they head up the volunteer organization Sammy's Bundles of Hope. So Teri is a certified or a registered pet handler. And Sammy, I understand, is a therapy dog. And together they help children who have experienced trauma, which that in itself is an amazing thing. Teri also has a degree in psychology, and she's currently writing a book. So Teri has a very, very interesting story to tell. She's been through a lot in her short life, and I can't wait for you to hear how full of hope and joy this beautiful woman is, despite her journey. So, Teri, welcome to this event. It's just such a joy to have you here.
Oh, well, thank you so much. You can see me beaming, one, because you said short life, and so I wanted to hug you for that. That was awesome. So thank you. I feel honored to be here and a part of this beautiful event.
Okay, so Teri, I'm sure our viewers are very curious about your journey. You have experienced trauma and grief together in a series of events that are just outstandingly traumatic. So could you just talk us through how one experiences trauma and grief, and are they different things or are they the same, and what do we do if that's what our journey is? How do we handle it or cope?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I always start with, when I give my presentations, that what I call the ugly facts. And it's just, I've gotten to a point, because I've done so much healing, that I kind of just bullet point them just to paint the picture of what I've been through. But then I get to the hope part of it, which was the healing part in working through the grief. So I'll very quickly go through just the traumatic events. When I was 4, an intoxicated parent attempted to drown me and my 1-year-old sister in a bathtub. When I was 5, I was sexually molested for the first time by a 16-year-old neighbor alongside my 5-year-old best friend. When I was 9, I was sexually molested by a 19-year-old neighbor when my mom sent me for a can of soup. When I was 10, I was repeatedly molested by my choir director. When I was 14, I was sexually accosted by a religious education director in the rectory of the priests where I worked in the evenings. Also, during the first 10 years of my life, my dad was physically abusive until he sought counseling and then stopped hitting me. When I was 16, I lost my virginity to date rape. Later that same year, I was attacked in a gang attack in downtown Cincinnati, Ohio, where I was sexually accosted. When I was 17, a police officer involved in that investigation asked my parents if he could take me to dinner to celebrate the convictions. We convicted 49 out of 50 gang members. And my parents said, oh, yes, he's a police officer. However, he did not take me to dinner. He took me back to his apartment where he attempted to rape me. When I was 21, I was involved in a bank robbery where a gun was held to my head and my coworker was stabbed 3 times with a hunting knife. They escaped. 3 months later, they would return to our main office where I had just moved. And this time, the man who had held the gun to my head pulled the trigger and murdered my coworker, Marcia Berger. I had run from the back of the bank and came face to face with the second armed assailant who pulled his trigger, but the gun misfired and my life was yet again spared. So those first 22 years of my life were horrific. And I never really went through a grieving process because I learned to compartmentalize. I learned later in EMDR therapy, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, that I started to compartmentalize. I dissociated a lot from what was going on. And as a child, I couldn't handle the overwhelm of the trauma that was happening to me. And so by dissociating, I didn't stay connected to the events and was able to step away from it. I want to say cognitively, but my body was storing that negative energy, that trauma, right? We've learned so much about trauma through ACEs science, which is adverse childhood experiences. And I remember people saying, including my mother, oh, that happened a long time ago, just forget about it. Well, you can't just forget about it. It impacts our brains, it impacts our bodies. There's just so much, and we store it. And until we go through that grief journey, until we go through that processing of the traumatic events and learn healthy ways to cope with it and to cope with everything that's coming up, it's going to find a way out. And the way it found its way out with me was severe panic attacks. So for 25 years, I would have these overwhelming panic attacks. Sometimes they would wake me in the middle of the night. I started developing horrible fear of driving over bridges, horrible fear of driving on highways, being out in open spaces. I was feeling very exposed. Well, now I understand why. But once I learned, and here's where I get to the hope part of it, that our brains, once we learn how to deal with traumatic events, we can rewire our brains. Brain plasticity studies are amazing, and neuroplasticity. And learning then how to go back into those traumatic events, process them, and allow our body to release the stored negative energy, and then rewire those neurons and those pathways and create new healthy responses to triggers. Everything changes. Like, that's where hope lies, is that you don't have to stay stuck in the trauma, in the grief, that you can come into this beautiful life of peace and joy.
That is an incredible story, Teri. I don't know if I'd still be standing if all of that had happened to me. I think I'd be a puddle on the floor. I commend
have people
you,
tell
really.
me. Thank you. I have people say to me all the time, oh my gosh, like, how did you get through all that? And you radiate joy, Teri. And the other half of ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Questionnaire, is the resilience part of it. And for years, I used to be like, I don't know, the grace of God, like, I don't know how I survived it. And then I started to understand resilience. When I went back in and did my resilience score, I found out I score really high in resilience. And it's because I had things like a grandmother who loved me and was with me daily and provided a tremendous amount of calm and peace and love. She didn't hit me. She didn't yell at me. There wasn't that part of it where I had, my mom's addiction, my dad's violence, all of the things happening outside the home. With her, I was just surrounded in this bubble of comfort and love. And so I get choked up, like I'm getting a little teary-eyed. They say that with children, if there can just be that one caring adult in their lives, so that teacher, that coach, that grandparent, whoever that person is in a child's life, can make a profound difference. Even if you don't know what's happening. My grandmother didn't know what was happening in my life. I mean, she knew obviously of my dad's violence, but other than that, and my mom's drinking, but she didn't know the other stuff that was going on. And then I had my best friend's parents who did little things, like her mom would go to the grocery store and come back and say, Teri, I bought you a bunch of Little Debbie snack cakes. And I'd go and open the cabinets and it would be filled with nutty bars and all these wonderful snacks that I didn't have at my home because we didn't have money. There was a lot of poverty. And so those little things helped me feel valued, helped me feel protected, helped me feel loved. There are other things in the resilience score, like even though my parents had their issues, they were also incredibly encouraging. Like, oh, Teri, you're so smart. You can do anything with your life. So they were always building me up, even though we were living in this chaos, if that makes sense. So one of the things I wanted to talk about in the grief part of it is I learned as an adult in my 40s how to grieve the loss of that relationship that I was supposed to have with my parents, that they were supposed to be my protectors and help me, keep me safe, right? And so that didn't happen. And I had to learn how to go through an entire grieving process. My mom is still alive. My dad has since passed, but my mom's still alive. And we went on a grief journey together. And it was one of the most beautiful. I know you and I talked about going down a forgiveness route, but it has been so incredibly healing. My mom is now living sober. It's been a journey for her, and she fell off the wagon, but I stayed with her because I now understand the trauma she went through, and she started to open up and talk about her journey. And then we just have developed this incredible friendship and mother-daughter relationship. And I just feel beyond blessed. Again, I'm getting choked up and teary-eyed because we were able to do a grief journey together and process so much of what has happened. And she has said, I am sorry that I wasn't the mother that I should have been.
Wow, Teri, that is just amazing. I'd like to say you're fortunate that you've regained that relationship with your mom. That's fantastic.
Thanks.
So I'm going to switch direction now because I am so curious about the Dolphin of Hope. So please tell us, what's the Dolphin of Hope story?
Oh my gosh, it's such a powerful, powerful story of, I'm just going to tell it, and then everyone in the audience can just let it be what it is for them. So after going through everything I'd been through, I made a dream come true and moved to Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, which is paradise. And we had vacationed here for 20 years. And I had always said it felt like home and I wanted to live here. So we moved here. And within 6 months of moving here, in March of last year, in 2021, I cried to my family, I feel like I've been poisoned. And I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't know what was happening. Well, very, very long and complicated story short, we came to discover that I had aspergillus in my body, which is mold. And we tested the house and it was filled with aspergillus. Now, this was a beautifully renovated house. Well, we had found out a man had died in the house. He hadn't been found for over a week. The house was filled with toxic mold to the point that they condemned it. And no one told us this before we moved into this house. So we had no idea. It affected me because, interestingly enough, people with trauma history tend to be more sensitive to mold and have a tendency, it's not necessarily true, but it's one of those little factors that plays along. I think because we just have a weakened system from all that we've been through. And so I wasn't eating super healthy. I was eating healthy, but I just wasn't caring for myself the way I needed to. And so my body was just left open to this toxin and it got in. So I went up to a little beach in our neighborhood called Dolphin Head. And it's called Dolphin Head because supposedly dolphins are there. We had lived here for 6 months, or no, at this point, it was almost a year. And I hadn't seen dolphins but twice. And both times where a friend said, oh, look, there's dolphin. And they were out in the distance. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so exciting. So I went up to Dolphin Head and nobody was there. I mean, it's usually really crowded. And I thought, is the park closed? What's going on? But it was just me. Sat down in my chair in my little meditation spot, looking out over the Port Royal Sound, and just started crying and praying. And I said, I need a sign that I'm on the right path. I was doing holistic healing, and I just need to know that I'm doing the right thing. And I was just talking to God, spirit, energy, angels, whatever you want to call it, and just putting it out there from my heart and soul, and sobbing. And I said, if you could please just give me a sign, I need a big neon sign because it's what I need. If you could give me a sign. And I said, just send me some Dolphin of Hope, please. And I opened my eyes and I said, okay, Dolphin, I'm ready for you. And in the instant I said the words, what seemed like 20 dolphin came right out of the water in front of me, as if someone had tapped them on the bottom and said, all right, go. And my whole body started shaking. I have goosebumps on my arm talking about it. I was hysterical because I said, okay, now I get it. I am now listening. And I knew in that moment there was something at work far greater than me. And I just felt embraced by it, and just I finally thought enough, because I was so caught up in the moment, to grab my phone. So I have a little tiny video of them swimming off, but they're off in the distance because I was just like so incredibly caught up and overwhelmed in the moment. So that's my Dolphin of Hope.
That is beautiful, Teri. That's an
Thanks.
incredible story. So for people listening, ask for signs, because they are there. And we've had this in a previous episode as well. Ask for signs from your loved ones that, they're okay, they're watching over you. Ask God for signs. Am I on the right path? That's amazing,
Yes.
Teri. Beautiful story.
Thank you. And I will say, I find hearts everywhere. So even like looking over, like, there's just, I find them everywhere, every day, all the time. And it's my dad. And I always stop and say, thanks, Dad. I love you too, because I just know he's with me, and he's given me messages through friends who have medium tendencies. He said at one time, a friend called and said, your dad's saying there's a message in the blue book. And I was like, oh my gosh, a message in the blue book. I had all of his books, and he wrote like in every page and underlined. And I was like, how am I ever going to find a message in the blue book? I was shaking books, looking for a note to find out or fall out. Finally, I waited like a year. I just said, Holy Spirit, when I'm ready to find the message, when it's meant for me, it'll come to me. And I was writing my book, and I happened to look over at my bookshelf, and behind some knickknacks, I saw the top of a blue book. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And I pushed the knickknacks aside and pulled this blue book off. And it was my dad's New Testament with a worn blue cover, and didn't have no words on the outside, just a blue book. And he was a Jesuit brother for 8 years. And this was his book. And I said, oh my gosh, it's filled with his writing. I don't know how I'm going to find it. And I started flipping. He hadn't written on any page. He wrote on one page in the whole book. And when I found it, it said, my writing ability, what am I doing with it? And I said, all right, Dad, I got it. I'm supposed to write. I promised him on his deathbed I would finish his memoir. So I said, I will finish your memoir. I got it. So
Oh, that's incredible.
yeah, it's pretty cool. I know I have his note somewhere. I should have had it pulled out, but it's in my drawer. I copied it and blew it up, and I used to have it hanging above my computer until we moved. So yeah.
Brilliant, Teri, brilliant. Okay, so I know you have an amazing gift for the audience. Can you just talk about what you'd like to offer?
Sure. So I have a coping skills guide for panic attacks and anxiety, and it's filled with photographs that I've taken. I love to take photographs. I won't call myself a photographer, maybe an amateur photographer, but and then it's filled with coping skills that I've utilized along my own healing journey, and some very simplistic, some more a little deeper, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 mindfulness, which is a mindfulness practice I utilize every day. And it's not all encompassing. I've added so much more. So I fill my coping skills toolbox every day, it seems, with something. I'll have something come across my radar and I'm like, ooh, Ho'oponopono Hawaiian healing. What's that all about? Let's try that. Yeah, mindfulness and meditation and yoga, and just to offer myself peace and opportunities to invite more of it into my life as I move into this direction of healing. Yeah.
So Teri, what I'm hearing from you is be open-minded about the tools out there. Don't think, oh no, I can't meditate. I don't know how to. Why not try and learn? Why not if you tell yourself, oh, I don't see any signs, why not tell yourself, let me look to see if there are signs. So it's all about how you go about the journey, Teri. That's what you're saying, in essence, is be open rather than.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I think switching to living a life of gratitude too. When I open the shade every morning, like today, we're having a very rainy day, which is unusual. We don't have a lot of rain here on Hilton Head. But normally when I open the shade, the sun is shining and I'm like, good morning, God. And, I try to start and I'm like, thank you for another beautiful day. But today when I opened it, I was like, oh, thank you for watering the grass and my flowers. Now I don't have to go out and water them myself. So I switched it and and by living a life of gratitude and just mindfulness and being very much present in the now, I notice the little lizard when I'm watering my flowers and say hi to the little lizard and have a conversation with it. Or you notice the little bumblebee and I say, thank you for the pollen and the beautiful flowers and giving us honey. And I just try to live this life of, yes, being very open to the beauty that surrounds us in every moment.
That's beautiful, Teri. That is really stunning. Okay, so we come to the part of the talk. Is there anything you would like to add that I haven't asked about? Something that you feel the audience really needs to hear?
Oh my gosh, I've rambled on and on. I like you and I said, we could go on for a few hours, but we had to wrap it up really quick. So
no, you've got 5 minutes, Teri. So
all right. Oh, great. Awesome. Awesome. Oh my gosh. I mean, there's just one thing I just want to tell anyone who's listening is healing is possible. Hope is infused into everything I do. I have a Hope for Healing newsletter. If you go to my website, you can sign up for it. I have my book is called Unicorn Shadows, and it's a story of hope from trauma to triumph, a healing guide. Once I finally finish it, it's like 90% done. And so it's that last 10% that I have to, because it's hard to write trauma. And so I share my stories of trauma, but I also share lessons I learned along the way, like strength, my own strength and my resilience and curiosity and all of these things that have helped me heal. And then I have, oh my gosh, my podcast, the Healing Place podcast. Can I talk about that for 1 second?
Of course.
Because I received the most exciting news this last week on Listen Notes, which is a search engine for podcasts. There's 2.8 million plus podcasts. I just found out the Healing Place podcast is in the top 2.5% globally out of 2.8 million podcasts. So
congratulations.
Oh my gosh, my heart. And it's in 112 countries. So knowing that, like, the second most popular country that it's in outside the United States is Australia. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I love the idea of someone sitting down with their cup of tea in Australia and tuning into the Healing Place podcast and listening to these beautiful episodes of healing modalities and trauma recovery. So yeah.
And do you have to subscribe to it, or is it free, Teri?
It's free. That's the beauty. I do video as well. So it's on YouTube under Teri Wellbrock. And then for the podcast, it's on iHeartRadio, iTunes. I'm drawing a blank. Google Podcasts.
All the
Pandora. Yeah, you pick your favorite podcast audio outlet, and I'm probably on it. So yeah,
Oh, that's incredible, Teri. And so you're
thanks.
managing to reach more and more people. And
Yes.
and I think you've also put out some courses to help people,
Oh
Teri.
yes, yeah. Thanks. I recently did that. I put out two online courses. One is a 1-day course, and it's just a trauma warrior, kind of a review of the 10-day course so that people can really feel it out. It's $27. So, feel it out for $27 and see if it's a fit for you. And then if so, you can go look at the 10-day course, which is Be Your Own Hero, because really we all can learn to be our own heroes. And by that, I mean, we are the ones that are in charge of our own healing journey. There's no magic wand, there's no magic pill. We have to go through the darkness in order to get to the light. And so it's a journey. And if we're armed and we have people like you and me and so many others who can hold our hands and guide us along what we've been through to heal, it can be a beautiful process. And again, we put that cape on and we're like, all right, I did it,
Yeah. I rose above whatever was thrown at me. I rose up.
Right.
And I continue
Right.
to rise. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can say that, then yeah, that's incredible. Teri, if you can say that, it's incredible, because
Oh,
just
thanks.
just this little snippet of what you've been through is just wow. I'm actually not often at a loss for words. But yeah, you're
I get
incredible,
that quite
Teri.
often. I know. I always say I had a psychic once tell me when I told her I was writing a book, and I hadn't seen her as a psychic. She just randomly told me this. She was like, we were discussing, and I said, yeah, I'm writing a book. And she said, the movie's going to be much better, or even better. And I was like, oh, I said, and this is like outside of a Hollywood script. Sometimes I think people will be like, you couldn't even write this. It's so crazy.
Exactly. It's a Quentin Tarantino special.
Right, right. It is. I know. Well, and it's funny because now that I'm learning more about how, heaven and where we come from, and like just the journey of, like, I had a podcast guest once call it Earth School. And I said, I must have signed up for the PhD program for Earth School, because I'm like, or getting like a quadruple PhD. I don't know what I signed up for, but
Yeah, what's with this?
I know. Well, what lines did I get in?
Okay, we're going to have to end it there, Teri. I am so grateful that you came and spoke to us, because I think anyone experiencing their journey will see that if you can overcome the incredible things that you've overcome, then they can have hope that they will get through it. They just
Yes.
need to take it one step at a time, and they will get through it. Remember, everyone, keep an open mind, keep an open heart, and what you need will come to you. The dolphins will be there when you need them.
Yes.
Okay, Teri.
Oh my
Thank
gosh.
you.
Thank you so, so much.